Hey guys, my name is Nick. I wanted to do a quick review of this machine right here, the Anycubic Mega X. Sorry about the glare, it's pretty much the sun coming in here, but you can see the screen as it's printing there. I haven't found too many really good reviews about this machine. Most of them are reviewers who probably review 6 or 7 machines at a time. And one of the biggest things I found is almost every reviewer of the machines from China these days are just reviewing PLA. But I bought this machine based on a review from 3D Printing Nerd. And now I'm starting to think that he's more of a marketing person, just marketing these machines and actually testing them. So this one's got a 300 by 300 millimeter build plate. And I can't remember what the Z is offhand. The focus. The stats of this are supposed to be able to have a heated bed up to 90 degrees and a hot end up to 250 degrees Celsius so that you can print PLA, PETG, and ABS. You might be able to print PETG on this. I have a couple of times and that's pretty hard. ABS is just an outright lie. And we'll get into that in a moment. Assembling this machine is pretty easy. You just it becomes pretty simple. You just put this gantry here underneath the base, bolted together. There are some plugs. You can see the plugs right there. You just plug it in and stuff. And those plugs might seem like they make this machine pretty easy and pretty good quality. They actually make this machine horrible. At least that's my theory. So you can see right now the bed looks like crap, and you're probably wondering, well, why does the bed look like that? What's all that peeling? Well, that's bed adhesive. This supposedly has some fantastic Anycubic bed that actually with PLA I thought was wonderful. It worked as described. PETG and ABS and ASA do not stick to this. The prints just come loose. It's just horrible. You'll see a photo I'll put up in a corner that I fixed it with blue painter's tape. Problem is blue painter's tape holds a little hard to ABS and ASA, so didn't really enjoy that, peeling that off. So I just grabbed some bed adhesive from my other printers, threw it on here, and I'm having way better luck with all my prints now. Unfortunately, it does look like crap. There's nothing I can do about that. So, yeah, I can't keep this thing from going out of focus. My bad. You know, one of the biggest drawbacks of this printer is that there's not really any mods for it, because this part here makes it totally different from the other Megas. They cheaped out really bad with this. There is two, I don't know if you can see them back there, end stops for each side of the Z, because there's 2 motors pushing this up. And this side over here, for me, this bolt, there's 2 long bolts that go up and down to set your Z offset. It just kept falling down, so I ended up having to put some thread locker on it to stop it from doing that. I was just, why is every print horrible? You know, every first layer just terrible. And what's causing that is this machine oscillates so bad. So you have to slow this machine down quite a lot to not have ringing in a part. Because it's literally just shaking itself apart. It oscillates so bad. And to stop that, what I did is I grabbed the packing foam that came with it and set it underneath it, and that dropped the noise down and stopped a lot of the ringing and oscillation. But unfortunately, it stops the airflow that this machine needs to cool itself, because it's got a fan underneath pulling air directly up into the electronics. The next terrible part about this is the filament loading system on this. You can see it's off at this weird angle, and it goes through a filament runout sensor that I have beliefs is just there for hilarity. And then up into the extruder. This is the stupidest way I've seen in multiple 3D printers I've owned to run filament into a machine. It's terrible. I don't know why it's running up like this. You cannot just flip this extruder. The way it's bolted on, it has its own special bracket. So it's just terrible. I've had filament snap, I've had filament snag through this. I've tried to run bigger rolls because I usually run big rolls of filament. I don't like buying rolls in this 1 kilogram. And you can see this is some leftover from a 5 kilogram roll that I just spun around an empty 1 kilogram roll just so I could keep this printer going. And it's just terrible. It was just a horrible, it's like an afterthought idea. And it's a terrible thing. The other thing is the carriage here, the X gantry. There's no way to tighten these belts, and they are loose. And what it is there's no pulleys to adjust. All you can do is you clip 3 zip ties right here at the carriage, pull the belt tighter, and then zip tie it. And I did that to the best of my abilities to try and help stop some of that ringing and stuff. It didn't really work. Another thing is a surefire sign of a bad printer. This is an extra Hotend. If you get an extra Hotend in the box, that's just setting you up for failure. And we're going to go into that right now. This printer supposedly gets up to 250 degrees Celsius can print ABS. You will not get to that for much longer than an hour. For one thing, these cheap Chinese printers, this PTFE tube doesn't stop like there. It runs all the way down into the top of the heatsink, into probably hitting the nozzle if I remember correctly. So this PTFE tube can't take that temperature for long, especially not this cheap stuff. But the bigger thing is, besides that, is that if you try running it at ABS temperatures, or even PETG temperatures, honestly, if you try running above about 240C for long, you're going to get thermal runaway if you're lucky, and it'll shut the machine off. If you're not lucky, well, you probably got a fire hazard. And to the best of my abilities of what I could figure out after swapping Hotends and checking around and testing stuff, I believe they have connectors, like you can see this proprietary connector or whatever right there. So there's a board underneath that for all of this stuff to wire in. You've got connectors down here, and there's 3 more between the power supply and that heatsink. And what I think's happening is one of them's just so cheap and is soldered so poorly that as it takes load constantly to keep the Hotend at 250C, it's just backing the solder off, and then it needs more power, and it tries to pump more power, and that automatically throws it in thermal runaway. So I don't think upgrading to an actual E3D V6 is going to fix that. It might ease that a little bit and maybe help, because it'll be easier to heat the Hotend up versus this other stuff. But I've talked to several other people who own this machine, and one guy has thrown way too much money at this machine, and it's pretty much not worth it. So unless you're going to print only large PLA prints, it's probably not worth it to upgrade this machine at all. Just use it as it is. And once again, the problem with printing large PLA prints with this machine, like you would want, you can only put 1 kilogram rolls on it. And the filament feeding is just terrible. So the filament runout sensor on this is a hilarious joke in itself. It doesn't work with Octopi, but that's to be expected. It doesn't work with its own machine though. So if I were to clip this right now and have the filament run out, it would pause the print like you would expect, right? So you can pull this out, load new filament all the way into the Bowden tube. When you go into this screen down here, there we go, screen. You see pause and you see stop. Well, there's not. That's the same thing you're going to see after the filament runout sensor. These menus are just terrible. They're perhaps the worst navigating menus at all. So if you have to rely on the machine to pause and resume and stuff, it usually just locks the board up, and you have to restart the machine. And if you think about changing colors in a print and you use G-code to do this in your slicer, you're also going to lock the board up and have the print fail. You're not going to be able to do that. So you have two options. You can either stand here and wait for hours and hours and hours until the point you want to pause and just pause on the machine, and that'll work. I've done that twice now. Or you have to plug Octopi in, and then you can do it in the G-code, and Octopi will take over. And at least in Octopi, I can set the print head over here when I pause. If you pause regularly, you're just going to have the Hotend chilling, you know, on top of the print, and that's not good for changing colors. The bed temperature only reaching 90, that's because I think you can actually get the bed to go over that. You're just going to have to change the machine limitations in the firmware. The issue with that is, one, it's 12 volt. That is like the hugest drawback of this printer. And now I know why they've made it 12 volts, because of all these connectors. There's no way they can handle 24 volt. They made it 90 degrees C temperature for the special coating of this bed, which is just trash anyways to me, but whatever have you. You can override the firmware and get it to run hotter, but it'll probably destroy this top coating. But yeah, so this is a 12 volt machine, and it does have a Meanwhile power supply in it, but that's not a good thing. Especially with a hotbed this large at 300 by 300. This bed takes a while to get to PLA temperatures. And I'm saying that, and I'm sitting 5 feet away from a wood burning stove that's running at night. So, and to try and get this thing up to PETG temperature, say you want to run 80 to 90 C, or if you're even stupider and want to try ABS on this machine, you've got time to make tea, make dinner, feed the kids, feed the dogs, take the trash out, probably learn some Spanish before that bed even gets close to that temperature. Because once again, it's a massive bed with a 12 volt power supply. Stupid idea. And the most hilarious thing about this is I bought this machine on sale, and I feel like I was overpaid. And I mean drastically on sale. I think I paid $300 for this. The regular retail price of this, looking at this just a moment ago, because I wanted to see what it was because I couldn't remember, is well over $400. Do not pay $400 for this machine. If you could find this machine for a couple $100, it's probably worth it, and then, you know, maybe doing some mods wouldn't be so bad. But as it stands, this machine's just about worthless. You know, one of your biggest things is that you're gonna have to, you know, either direct wire the Hotend so that it removes some of these connector boards, or get an E3D and then direct wire it. And then probably, if that's just me, to upgrade this machine to where I would want it to be, that would be the first thing I do, so I could stop getting thermal runaway. The second thing I would probably do is upgrade this to a 24 volt machine, which involves changing out all the electronics, and that's just not worth it. So, but that's like my 15-minute take on this. I have had successful PLA prints. I have had some successful PETGs. There's a PETG right there. It's just it came out alright. You can see that this is with a 0.8mm nozzle. With a printer like this, you really, you know, you're buying it to print larger prints faster, so you definitely want larger diameter nozzles. So this is just a PLA print. You can see that it's printing some now. Those are parts for one of my molds. I have not tested TPU on this. People say TPU runs okay through it. It's a Bowden setup, and that to me means don't run TPU through it. That's just, I have other machines, so I hope this helps anybody out who's actually looking at this machine, and is actually going to do the research to look past like 3D printing nerds and a couple of the other top reviewers' videos. Have a wonderful day. Hey guys, this is later me, next day. Actually I wanted to add some, the main reason why I bought this printer. This printer is so sturdy, I can pick it up like that and it prints just fine. There's been several times where, you know, this thing flinging this glass bed around on this temporary table, it just chucks it everywhere. So if I'm going to turn the speed up above 30, that's what it's at right now, 30 millimeters per second. I'll just pick it up after I get the first layer right and set it down on the floor and let it print down there. That's probably the only good point about this printer is that, you know, most of your money's going into the sheet metal, hard sheet metal frame. Unfortunately, everything else surrounding the printer sucks. And honestly, this sturdy sheet metal frame isn't worth the $400. So take that as you will.